Think we're ready to get started? I don't know how many people are
Yeah.
on there, but
Yeah, we're good. I think
okay,
we've leveled up.
yeah, let's get this going because for everybody that's been waiting so patiently. So my name is Peter West, otherwise known as Professor P, and with me is Travis Durick from Peplink. And today we're going to talk about edge computing and the capabilities in Peplink's routers ecosystem for either application, Docker, and virtualization. And so what is edge computing? Edge computing is this, I don't want to say new concept. I hate that when people do that because I feel like it's a marketing term, but I think it is relatively, like, actually is kind of a new idea of bringing applications to your edge routing or your SD-WAN router capabilities. So basically adding capability to your WAN edge or your router. And so Peplink has done this with, we now call it edge computing. It used to be called MediaFast for our content caching. And so it's sort of been around for a long time. And that's what's also really neat about Peplink. You know, SD-WAN wasn't called SD-WAN when Peplink started doing SD-WAN, and edge computing wasn't called edge computing when Peplink started doing edge computing. We called it MediaFast. And so the idea is by adding applications, Docker or KVM virtualization directly to the Peplink router so that you can run processes or workflows anywhere. I mean, I'm in my RV and there's my BR2 Pro 5G running Docker images. So I don't know if Travis, you want to add to that? I might not be getting the buzzwords right. So
yeah, I think if we just kind of like take a step back and look at like, the whole history of computing, right? We had, way back in the original days, we had mainframe technology, right? And that was like centralized application running on a server in your building, in your office. And that worked great, right? All your users are kind of connected to that local network. And then you've got this one central application. But then, in the 2000s, we really moved to the cloud, right? Everything was on the cloud and everything got outside of your office and there's no need for servers anymore. And the cloud's going to do it all for you. But, the users are still at the edge, and the edge has gotten way further out now too, right? Peter's in a Sprinter van, in 1990s, we weren't trying to run applications in a Sprinter van. We were in our office in our suits and ties doing these things. And so, the cloud is great, but when we're out at the edge, we need things fast and reliable and stable out there too. And so there's kind of this hybrid happening now where we're running things on the edge, but also leveraging that cloud side to really make the two work together. And so that's really what edge computing is all about from a big
cloud connected edge.
Yeah, exactly.
A good example of the first iteration of this was our application or content caching capabilities. So Peplink started off with this MediaFast appliance that added content caching capabilities, which then got increased. I apologize. There's a bus out there honking, but then got this. Then we added application support, and the application support means that now you can run native Python. Oh man, help me out here. Python and
we got Python, we got Docker, and then we got full operating.
No, like the Docker's separate. So in the app, we have Python and, give me 1 second.
Oh, just the Ruby applications.
Yes, thank you. Python and Ruby. Sure. I was missing that one. So we have Python and Ruby as native application support built right into the Peplink router, which means you can write a program, a website right inside your router. And so you can build a web app and actually download that right to the Peplink router and then run that natively. I'm going to demonstrate that later. And then we have Docker support. Docker allows us to run containerized applications or virtual machines, in a sense, on the Peplink routers, which allows us to spin up multiple instances of Docker applications and be able to deploy those out in the field. And so one of the things that we've done on our demo router is we have a Docker Pi-hole to act as an add-on to my DNS services. So basically I can have enhanced DNS capabilities built right into my Peplink router. Further, we increase that by doing a forwarder to a Cloudflare DNS encryptor. So basically, for my router, if you connect to the BR2 Pro 5G that I have, you get an IP address from DHCP. The DNS is going to be the Pi-hole. The Pi-hole has a forwarder that goes to my Open DNS, or my Cloudflare Docker image that then encrypts that DNS traffic and then sends it out into the world. And so giving me better privacy on the internet, while also bringing all that technology right to the router. So I don't have to wait for DNS responses on the internet. We have 3 platforms like we mentioned. We have application and Docker. So the application and Docker is supported on many of our routers, like the Transit Duo Pro and the BR2 Pro 5G. If you want KVM, actual hypervisor support, you need to have either an EPX, a 2500 EC, an SDX Pro, or an upgraded MBX. If you have an MBX now, don't freak out and go try this and then yell at me that it doesn't work. It does require storage and a license. So the MBX can be upgraded to support hypervisor. The SDX Pro, 2500 EC, and EPX have it all included. The native app deployment. So I'm gonna do a live demo, because I think that, unless you have something else you want to add, but I think it's showing it's going to be.
That deployment's kind of cool, because that was 10 years ago that we did that, and so that was a railway system, and again, this is 10 years, and so that was, you know, using the balanced routers with what we called MediaFast at the time, but we were basically powering that entire transit system display, so people could see where the vehicle was, when it was showing up, what the next stops were, but also delivering advertising content. And you know, in those days, it required a whole bunch of programming to do all that stuff, and that was fine. This customer had those resources in-house, but you know, now with Docker and being able to run different applications and containers, the barriers to entry to this are so much lower, and it's so much easier for companies and customers to be able to deploy really rich, powerful local applications like this. So yeah, Peter, dive on in and show us what you've built.
Yeah, so for the proof of concept or the demo, and I try to do demos, and what was interesting, I've been struggling for about 4 days on how to do a real-time demo, because you notice, like, all these webinars, I try to real-time set this up. Applications and virtualization is not a quick process. Just the idea of deploying Windows Server can take, you know, 45 minutes to an hour of time. And so it's gonna be like a cooking show where I've got stuff pre-built for you, and I'm gonna do the best I can to deep dive it. That being said, I do have a YouTube video, and I don't normally try to promote any of my channel stuff on the Peplink University, but I do have a YouTube video that I actually went through and went real time and went through deploying a hypervisor. We're going to do the same thing for Docker, and we're going to do the same thing for a Python based application. But what I spent a lot, and that's why I'm sort of chuggling through this demo a little bit more, not so fluidly as I did, because I was so passionately invested in providing you guys a real-time demo. But due to how long it takes to deploy applications and deploy these services and configure them all, it can't be done in 1 hour. And so I'll have 3 1-hour segments that you can watch online with application, Docker, and hypervisor. And so the live demo is going to be showing you how I do it and the end result, but not necessarily the step-by-step guide. And so I do want to just preface that. So the first thing we did was a Docker deployment. And our original goal was to deploy a Docker SNMP agent. But the programming of the dashboard was not being done fast enough for the webinar. And so Ben, one of our new system engineers over at West, came up with a great idea of demonstrating Docker with enhanced security. A lot of RVers or mobile, like people that walk around with mobile internet, secure internet's an important thing. Having ad-aware, ads removed from your content, or having your DNS protected from the ISPs and things like that. And so we thought, well, how cool would it be to demo basically a BR2 Pro 5G with secure internet, like really decently secure internet, just out of the box. And so we spun up 4 VMs. Let me log into this router. Oops. So here's my BR2 Pro 5G. I've got two AT&T and a USB hotspot connected. So I'm going to go into my dashboard here. There we go. And if I go into my advanced tab of the BR2 Pro 5G, you'll see right here, Edge Computing. So if you're running 8.3 firmware, you're going to have MediaFast has been now renamed Edge Computing right there, which is really nice. In the Transit Pro or the Transit Duo Pro or the BR2 Pro 5G, you can come in and you should have application and Docker. So application allows us to deploy basically web applications locally. And so I've created this content.westnetworks.com. That should work for anybody that wants to go there, but we're caching it locally. Something that we have to do before, if you're going to run any scripting, is you have to go to System, Package Manager, and you want to make sure Python and Ruby are installed if you're using those as part of your web application. So there's my Python, my Ruby, and Python 3, which is not installed. So I could click download and install Python 3 if I needed to. But this installs the framework needed to run those applications. So you do want to make sure if you're using application-based edge computing, that they are either Python or Ruby based if you want them natively supported here on the Peplink. Once you have those installed, you can go into your storage manager and you can allocate how your storage is used. So I have my Content Hub, which is the application, and I have my Docker's capabilities. And so you can see here that I've got 7 GB available here on the BR2 Pro 5G. I've got 4 megs of free unallocated. 700 megs is dedicated to my Content Hub, and about 6 gigs is dedicated to Docker. I can format those partitions if I want to. And then once you have your storage manager allocated and your package manager allocated, I can then go into the advanced tab, go to my application, and right here I can click new website if I want to. And with a new website, I have I can do an HTTP website, or I can do an application. And so you can choose if it's going to be using like Python or Ruby, or if it's just a regular HTTP or HTTPS website. So once you do that, we just added the website, content.westnetworks.com. We put in the FTP URL, username, and password, tell it how often to sync, and hit save and apply. Once you do that, you now have the website being pulled in. And if I click on this little square right here, it'll actually open a file manager within the Peplink router, so I can see the files that are syncing with the system. So it's going to open a new tab with a little file manager. It's going to show me all the files that are part of that website that it's downloading and syncing. Also, I can click this green button to force it to sync right now. And then here I can click this to edit the current site settings, or I can delete it. So on the BR2 Pro 5G, and once again, the complications of a real-time live demo is I'm broadcasting on the internet, so I can't connect to a disconnected internet, but I did test this last night. So if I connect to this router, the BR2 Pro 5G, turn off my internet, I can go to content.westnetworks.com and it's still load, because this content, which once again, it's sort of like, it's a little bit fake because of the real-time demo, but this website that we set up for this demo loads on my BR2 Pro 5G when I have 0 internet. So this content is being cached locally. So imagine a train or a bus service that maybe has a video server and they want to have like 4 or 5 videos. They could have videos.theirdomain.com or content.westnetworks.com, and then I can have those videos cached right to the router. I was even thinking of a really cool idea that I could create a how-to guide on all the router, like a how to set up your router, and then you just go to routersetup.com, and then you have a little router video on how to set up your router that's pushed to the Peplink routers. I just thought that would be kind of a fun use case scenario that we could push to basically all the routers. Once again, I wish I could show you more, but if I'd have to disconnect from the internet to show you, and I do apologize, but That is really easy to set up though. I mean, that's pretty much it. The Docker was a little bit more complicated to set up. And Ben probably has a really good story we could tell about this. So Docker, there's a 3-step or 2-step part. First, you need, when you're running a Docker for the very first time, you have to download the Essential, which basically activates Docker on the Linux core of the Peplink router. Once you have Docker Essential installed, you can then click search right here on the search Docker images. And you just search Pi-hole. It's a really weird name, by the way.
We've got jokes I'm just not gonna air out on the live webinar now.
On the live webinar. Did I spell it wrong? Of course, it's not gonna work for me right this second, but oh, there we go. So I can search the name of the image that I want to push, and there's a big database of these images, and there's lots of applications. Like you can think like security appliances, web gateways, antivirus gateways, can increase the security validation of a Peplink router. So you can see right there, there's Pi-hole. Click the download button, and it's going to download that image. We did the same thing for Cloudflare, and so we downloaded that. Then you click this plus, and you can put in the Docker command to provision the server. And so I've got these 4 servers here, Pi-hole and Cloudflare. And I am on a different router, but I'm pretty sure I can go to 10.254. Give me 1 second. I did a virtual NAT on it. Support. I'm sorry, you guys. There we go. So then I can log into this Pi-hole app. This Pi-hole is running on my BR2 Pro 5G. That is cool. So this system is right inside the Peplink router with its own web UI. And I actually have 2 of them in HA. So you have 51 and 52. And if you noticed, just for anybody that might be watching, the IP address is 192.168.50. But because I'm routing through SpeedFusion, and I don't want 192.168.50 to conflict, I actually am using what's called a 1-to-1 NAT. It's a VNAT feature where I'm actually mapping 192.168.50 to a different subnet, so it doesn't conflict with any other subnets that I have on my network, which is why I just had to quickly grab it, the 10.254.189. That allows me to access this on the LAN through SpeedFusion if there's other routers on my network with a 192.168.50. But here I can then see a dashboard, see how much it's protecting my network, what sites are being going to on this router, and I can configure my clients, my groups, my domains. So it's a fully functioning containerized application running inside the BR2 Pro 5G. And then in the settings and DNS, we changed it. Sorry, I apologize. We were playing around with it last night, trying to get the application to work. But then we also have the other Docker application that is the Cloudflare. And so what we did is the Cloudflare application is 10.192.168.50.253 and 254. So what we did is you go into settings, DNS, and we point the router, the Pi-hole, to 253 and 254. This sends it to Cloudflare, which encrypts and secures my DNS queries. So now if I'm, AT&T and T-Mobile or anybody else isn't the wiser of my DNS traffic. It's all being hosted right onside my BR2 Pro 5G. And once again, I think that's pretty cool. That's like the fact that we just have this app running. And the other thing is you get this kind of like memory utilization. You can see the load of the system and active. It's kind of, I'll see if I can zoom in a little bit for you. But you can see there's a lot of reporting that we're getting on the DNS, which is, once again, adds a lot of functionality. Before I move to hypervisor, are there any questions about Docker? I know we normally take questions at the end, but because we're doing a whole bunch, do we want to address are there any questions about Docker application before we move on to KVM?
I don't see any Docker specific questions. There's one about in control. There we go. Catherine, are there any limits to the size of the Docker applications?
So that goes into the storage on the router. So that's why we go to the storage manager. The BR2 Pro 5G has a built-in 7 GB partition for this capability. I don't want to misstate this, but I know that it's either coming or available, but we can add USB storage.
Yeah, certain models we're looking at ways that we can add USB storage as well. So
yeah,
no
so it's not
field there.
Yeah, it's not everywhere yet, but I know that we have an MBX capability with a special firmware that allow USB storage. So basically, instead of a USB hotspot, I could have a USB storage connected to it and increase the storage capabilities. But that's not publicly available on the routers yet. I do know we're working on it though.
Yeah, we'll see which models that's capable on, and which virtualization options that's compatible with. But yeah, definitely we want to expand that capability on devices that have those hardware support, or that have that hardware support.
And you can see right there, actually, the BR2 8 gigs and the Transit Duo has 8 gigs, comes with them. The 2500 EC has 1 terabyte, comes with it. The SDX Pro looks like it has 3 different models, I guess maybe based on firmware hardware version, but you have 500, 1 terabyte, and 2 terabyte. The EPX comes with a terabyte, and the MBX you can get a 512 gig, but once again, not built in. So you have to have a license for that. Any other questions about Docker application before we go to KVM?
The only question that's lingering out there, and I think this will apply to any of these, but just the IC2 side of it, what capabilities exist from the in-control side to provision these so far?
As far as I know, none yet, right?
Yeah.
We're managing all these locally, and there are a couple downsides. One, which I did last night, I factory reset my EPX to create the KVM, because I wanted to go through the settings, and it deleted all the data on it as well. So I had to re-upload my server image. So there are potential downsides, like make sure you have backups of your applications, or at least you have configuration backups. So you just be aware of that. But I think that would be a limitation of any router-based hypervisor or application, because once again, it's syncing, right? So like this website in the Docker, this website that we're syncing is stored on an FTP server, and then I'm pushing it to my edge. So it's sort of already backed up anyways. You just have to reconfigure it. And then the Docker images, they're just appliances with with configurations, once again, that are syncing. So you just have to re-push them out if you were to get a new device. But I don't think there's any configuration in control yet.
Correct. Yeah, again, this is where we're looking for feedback. What are features that you would like to see on that side? Are there examples of a similar provisioning system that you've used that works well? We know that there's other options out there in terms of centralized edge computing, and so we want to see what folks like and what works for people.
And I do, like I said, I have a step-by-step guide that I'm going to release for this. I once again, it took several hours, and so I feel bad that you guys don't get to watch this live, but I do have a step-by-step guide that Ben helped me create, or been created for this particular application. And so we will create a YouTube video just for this and release it for you. That way you can watch exactly how to do it. Because that's one of the things with this video series I want to do is make sure you know exactly how to implement these technologies. And so I did the best I could in the time frame of this webinar, but we will release a full step-by-step guide as well with all the commands and everything. So the last feature in the edge computing is hypervisor. And for that, I'm using an EPX because once again, the BR2 Pro 5G doesn't support hypervisor KVM support. And so the same type of process. So here's my EPX. The first thing you're gonna do is go to System and Storage Manager. And you got to make sure you provision storage. So here, the EPX, if you notice, I've got MediaFast because that's content caching now. Content Hub, which is the application, Docker, and then KVM. And so you can see my KVM. I've got a 1 terabyte-ish SSD right there in the EPX. And so I've provisioned my storage and formatted it. You can go to your package manager and download packages if you're going to do the application. But I don't have any on there and I don't have anything configured for that. And then you can see right here, external storage. So external storage is supposed to allow that USB storage and access of it. So there is capabilities coming down the line that's going to allow you to extend that on some of the devices. Then once you provision your storage, you go to advanced, and I can go to my KVM, and you turn it on. That's it. Turn it on, hit apply changes. Once you do that, this little tiny line's going to show up here down here at the bottom. It's kind of misleading. It's almost looks like a subtext, right? Click here to open the file manager. You can click here, and it's going to open that same file manager that we saw earlier with the when I opened my Content Hub. And here's my image, Windows Server 2022, and then here's my KVM VM that I created. A lot of people, the next step can be confusing because it is a hypervisor platform. This runs on KVM. So you use a Linux machine with Virtual Machine Manager. So I installed VirtualBox because I figured a lot of people like that. I was going to do Hyper-V, but I wanted something more universally appreciated, I guess. So I have a VirtualBox here that I installed at Ubuntu, and I've got an Ubuntu machine. So in my Ubuntu machine, I went to the App Store, downloaded Virtual Machine Manager, and clicked File, Add Connection. When you add connection, the connection's going to be, I'll do it right here, Add Connection, custom URL. And I don't know if you can see this. I apologize. This might be small, but it's, and this is in my YouTube video, but it's QEMU plus TCP : / the IP address of the EPX. So in my case, 192.168.10.1 / system. Once you do that, you click connect, you put in the IP or the admin name and password of the EPX's UI, and that's going to pop up right here. Then you can click new VM. You can choose your local media so I uploaded this Windows Server. I just drag and dropped it into the file manager. Once it's there, I can say local media, click next, and then hit browse. And there's my ISO right there, right on the EPX. And you can see there's my drive. I hit choose volume, and it's going to scan for the OS. If you just type in server 2022 or whatever it is that you're, there's a bunch of, you could run anything you want here. Click next, give it some RAM, and you can see here it tells you that you have up to 16 gigs available and up to 8 processors. So that's what's on the EPX available for you. It's important here that if you suck up all the resources on the EPX will no longer be a 40 gigabit router. It'll be a less than 40 gigabit router because some of the resources are being used for virtualization. So any virtualization, even on the Docker, you are going to be consuming CPU and memory that would otherwise go to performance. So if you overload it with too much stuff, Docker or hypervisor, you are consuming resources. Click next, give it storage capacity, click next, and then give it a name. and this is these next two steps are really important. Customize configuration before install. You want to check that. Device name. This is your Ethernet connection. It's BR0. That's really important. Otherwise, you're not connecting it to the appropriate bridge for the untagged LAN. And this will be connecting on the untagged LAN. So then I can click finish. It's going to open up the configuration guide. We want to remove console 1. Under display VNC, we want to say address and all interfaces and apply. Under video VGA, we want to change this to Verto and apply changes. And then you click begin install. When you click begin install, it's going to actually load up your virtual machine. It's going to build the virtual machine, load it up, start the Windows installation. Cancel install. And then you'll get a VM that is running this. So this is a Windows Server box running on, running on my EPX. I can terminal server right into it. So if I do MSTSC, so there she is, running right inside. So now you can run like Nexus, you can run an SNMP agent, you can run, you can, like, a lot of people want to do logging. Well, if you have an EPX with a terabyte of data or an SDX Pro with a terabyte of data, you could install an SNMP logging tool, right? Or any kind of SIM logging tool, pull all your router's logs right into this agent, and you have 1 terabyte of storage to do so. And so kind of neat. The options here are virtually endless because it's a hypervisor platform. A couple of the things that we did, one we demoed at the Peplink Tech Summit was actually using Nexus to do monitoring of the network equipment. One of my other clients is playing around with using it as read-only domain controller. So basically faster authentication and DNS for branch locations. So the options here are pretty useful because it's a Windows box running inside of, and it's not slow. I mean, this EPX is running on 2 HD1 domes, and that's how I'm connecting to it. I did all of this over the HD1 domes. I have 2 HD1 domes with internet connectivity, and the site, and it works just fine. So I know it's oversimplification of the process, but now once you have that set up, it's up and running. So now let's talk about some of the downsides then. So KVM management right now inside Peplink, inside the EPX, is that right there, which means there's no status, no start and stop, no provisioning. And so you need to have an Ubuntu or some sort of Linux manager with virtual machine manager. I know Ben and I are playing around with the idea of actually doing a Docker Ubuntu machine that'll run right on the EPX that we can then have, a machine manager right on side. The other thing I want to look into is, can we run like basically a package manager, like to run the virtual machine manager. So the idea is there a way to bring that virtual machine manager right into the EPX without having to install another operating system or to have that management? If the router reboots, if the EPX reboots, the machines will not start on reboot. So you'll have to load your virtual machine manager and click run. So those are the current downsides that I currently have in it that I'm hoping will get improved in future firmware. But like Travis always says in these videos, that's what they're here for, and to provide our feedback. And so the more we deploy these technologies and use them, and the more feedback we provide to Peplink, the more powerful these features become. And
running Windows or any operating system on a router is not a novelty. There's a lot of valid business reasons for doing this. We see harsh environments where our devices are certified and spec'd for these harsh environments, and then adding a PC to that environment is difficult in some cases, and next to impossible in other cases. And so And we have railway customers, national railway systems that are running Windows on these trains and doing all sorts of customized telemetry applications. We have video surveillance customers running, video management software systems on these routers.
Yeah, digital NVRs.
And all sorts of
we have
go ahead.
We have a mammo customer. So we have a mobile mammography customer that the hospital was bought by another hospital, and then the new hospital that bought them would not allow any external connections into the hospital at all. And the customer was heartbroken because they have this, EPX solution with all these internet connections trying to do real-time mobile mammography. And so the only option at that point, even though they had this EPX with all the connectivity, was to drive back to the facility and go back to the early 2000s. You had to plug in with an Ethernet line, and then it would go to a proxy machine. Because I asked the IT security, I said, well, then at the hospital, how do they transmit the images to you? And they go, oh, we have a proxy. So if you connect back into the hospital, you can connect to that proxy. It'll send the images to the proxy, which will then route through the cloud into our system, and we can store it in our packs. And I said, is that a virtual machine? And they said, yes. And I said, can we just install the proxy on the bus? And they go, I don't know. And I was like, it's just a virtual machine, right? And they go, yeah. And I was like, so what if we install it on the bus? And so I got them in contact with one of my techs, Josh Grummel. Josh deployed the proxy software VM on the EPX. We use SpeedFusion Connect to bond the traffic out to the cloud. And now the X-ray machine sends to the proxy appliance, which goes out through SpeedFusion Connect, doesn't touch the hospital network at all, and goes right into their PAC system. And it's all because we have virtualization, edge-based virtualization capabilities to run this proxy. And so absolutely amazing use case of the technology.
Yeah, that's super cool. And yeah, there's more simplistic stuff too, just IoT telemetry, these devices that spew all kinds of data all day, every day, right? You don't want to just stream that live to the cloud. You can use lightweight applications at the edge, process that data, pick out the anomalies, the important things, run some simple functions on that. And you can use that in conjunction with other cloud-based IoT platforms. So, Azure and AWS both have IoT specific systems and services on there, and so they have lightweight images that you can use in conjunction with those, so that you can again get that hybrid cloud and edge experience. So lots of capabilities, lots of possibilities out there, but again, we're all ears here. So we've got a lot of capabilities now, but we know that there's more refinements to do here, and more features that we can add to make this a lot more useful.
And using InTouch, you can just connect into all these VM applications right built into the Peplink ecosystem. So it's one ecosystem to rule them all.
I mean, that's a great point, right? If you've got these virtual machines running there, yeah, now you can get right into those that way as well.
Yeah. Like I said, we already have the installing Windows Server on KVM. I'll work with Ben and we'll release the Docker one, and then we'll also release the Content Hub step-by-step guide. Like I said, I do apologize. Normally I want to have those going on our webinars, but due to the amount of time it takes, it was just not possible. I went through the process like 5 times trying to make it fit in 1 hour, and it just wasn't going to work. Do we have any questions, Travis?
I'm typing some answers out here. I know there's a request for a sub $1,000 device that will support the full hypervisor option. That's tricky because hardware is the limitation there. You need an Intel x86 CPU to be able to achieve that. And so maybe not today, but I think there's models in our lineup that are close to that. So that's not. I mean,
when the SDX becomes near end of life, you could probably buy one used. And I'm kidding.
Yeah, I mean, CPUs are getting cheaper, and so it's possible, but it's not today is the short answer on that, unfortunately.
I'd say that the closest you're going to get is the Transit Duo Pro with Docker, right? And then I mean, there are Docker images of Windows Server. There's Docker images of Ubuntu. So I mean, you can get a lightweight virtualization using containers and Docker So the real answer to that is not full blown hypervisor, but with Docker, I mean, that gets really close.
Yeah, and I guess the question is, what are you trying to accomplish, right? What
Yeah,
what
what's the mission?
application are you trying to run? And yeah, maybe there's another way to do it, but yeah, regardless, we want to have those conversations, and whether that's on the forum or directly, those are things we definitely want to dig into more and just understand what the requirements are out there, and what people are trying to do. And requirements drive new models with Peplink, right? If we hear that there's a real need out there for a device that does something just slightly different, that's something we're always willing to at least investigate. Another question: will Docker restart automatically after a reboot?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I've rebooted this a number of times and it comes right back up and running. So, and Docker, this is what I would love to see in the KVM, right? When we add a VM, having it show up, it would be awesome if under the KVM, this showed up with all your VMs and you could start and stop them. But in Docker, they all automatically start back up. And you can start, stop, and delete them. And you can even, because it's a container based, you can even add new ones. So like, for example, this Pi-hole, I can actually click that and then paste in the command to create another VM, and it'll just boot that up and assign it. So
on the KVM side, if you use like a virtual machine manager, you can set that automatically start on boot option. Is that something that actually, okay, there's probably some.
Yeah, I've tried a few different things with that. Unfortunately, with the way that the virtual machine manager, at least in all my testing that I've done, you just have to come in here and click run. So like I said, one of the things that Ben and I are trying to do is spin up a Docker Ubuntu with VMM, so that way you have that ability to manage the router right natively in the router quickly.
Well, it seems like there's at least one feature request already coming out of this webinar, so that's great. Yeah, folks, again, feedback, marketing@peplink.com,
Yeah.
or forum.peplink.com. Peter at West Networks, Professor P is always here to answer questions too. So
we'll save you we'll give you guys back 10 minutes of your time then today. And if there's anything you need, Travis at Peplink, Peter at West Networks, and if you have feature requests or have any use cases on this or scenarios, I love telling stories. So if you're using this for something neat or want to use it for something neat, let us know. We'd love to work with you on that. The ability to empower the community with these projects is why we're here. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, folks. Take care, and we'll see you again in a month.
Have a good one. Bye.